Ladies and gentlemen, how we doing? It's Case from Q101. This is a Case for at Riot Fest. This is a show in which I coerce management into letting me talk to my favorite bands. And after a long, delayed time, I am delighted to have Michael from Spiritual Cramp with me at Riot Fest. How are you, my friend?
I'm delighted to be here. I'm well. We just played.
Mm-hmm.
The crowd response was great.
Good.
We did play in direct sunlight.
Hot as hell over there.
It's like it's a little warm, but I live in Los Angeles, so at this point, the heat has just beaten me down to accept it. But the set was awesome. Everyone was saying, they're saying, you're going to love Riot Fest, but that's what everyone says about every festival you play. And I loved it.
Good.
It was amazing. Yeah, it's a good set.
I've been telling the Q101 audience for a few weeks now, on social media, I'll put my head next to a band. I go, you got to see this band. I spent a lot of time talking about your band on the radio, on social media, saying everybody go see Spiritual Cramp. It seemed like a nice turnout. I hope the Q101 audience enjoyed it because I know I did.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I saw that. It did feel like people were there to see us.
Good.
Which at a festival, it depends on what time you're playing, who's playing at the same time as you, and that was about as good as I could have hoped for playing at 250 on a Friday. It was amazing, and yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks, it was great.
I'm glad you mentioned that about playing in front of audiences that might not know what the deal is when they get there. So I've seen you guys a bunch now. Whenever you guys are in Chicago, I go out of my way to see you. You guys played with the Mets a few years ago at the Metro.
We did.
I don't know if you remember that night. It was about 10 degrees outside.
I remember very well.
Freezing cold.
Yeah, it was cold.
And with all due respect to the Mets, I don't know any of their songs. I did not stay for their set. I bought a ticket to see you guys.
Okay.
And
love Mets. I'm going on record saying I love Mets.
They seem delightful.
Sure.
I just don't know them.
Yeah.
I felt something very interesting in the room that night where the audience trickled in lakes. It was so cold, and I feel like a lot of that crowd maybe wasn't hip to what you guys were doing at the start of your set, and there was palpable energy that by the time that set was done, you guys had won over a lot of that room. Can you talk to me about the approach when you guys play in front of, an audience that might not know you or a festival? Do you have to do anything to grab people's attention?
Ooh, yeah, totally. I remember the show that you're talking about, and I remember the crowd. And Mets' audience is like a little older. They're into Pitchfork, and it's a hip audience, right? It's not an open punky audience. It's kind of a pretty stern, posh audience, if you will. And for me, it's a case by case thing. If we get on stage and they're going crazy right away, I can unleash it immediately and just start calling into the crowd, and we respond with each other. But at a show like that, you kind of have to go a little slower, right? And you have to say a couple little sarcastic things first to show that, hey, it's don't worry, I'm in on this joke too at first. And then you start being like, well, did you like that? You got to kind of talk to him like an asshole. Or what, you know what I mean? It depends on which way the wind's blowing. But for that crowd, it's like, you can kind of be like, so what do you think? And they're like, I am enjoying this. And you're like, that's right. I know you're enjoying this because I know this is good. With humility, obviously. But, today, right, I got to walk out and I knew that they were ready for it. So I got to just walk out and go for it. But at a show like that, it's like you got to take it a little slower, be a little sharper and a little meaner, which is fun too. I can do that too. It just depends on which crowd you're playing in front of. And it's like meeting a person. You know, you meet someone and you're like, okay, cool. This guy doesn't want me to talk a lot, or this guy's giving me the floor so I can fill up some space. And it's a case by case thing for sure.
Am I correct in remembering you guys opened for Iggy Pop this year?
We did open for Iggy Pop.
Tell me about that. Do you have any Iggy Pop stories?
I walked off stage and Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers was like, great set. And I was like, yeah, okay. You've seen us play now a bunch of times. We're obviously humbly known as a pretty good live band.
I would certainly say so.
Yeah, and so oftentimes we play with bands, and sometimes the bands who play after us are like, man, I really don't want to play after you. And then every once in a while, we'll play with someone, and they'll walk up to you and be like, good set, kid, let me show you how it's done. And you're like, yeah, but I just rocked. And
I
then,
just ripped, actually.
And then Iggy Pop walked out and, like, nuked the building. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And then you start to realize when you're watching Iggy Pop why they are world famous, right? The Hives are another band who just, we couldn't even begin to touch them.
Really?
Yeah, the Viagra Boys too. Like, there's some bands that we've toured with who were like, oh, the reason you're so big is because you're larger than life, and it's a great learning experience too. You know, you see these people play, and you realize that, like, you can be big, and you know, so. But it was humbling.
Yeah.
Just humbled me into the ground. I like to be humbled.
Well,
Sometimes.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Iggy Pop, you guys were on the Life Under the Gun tour this year.
We were.
Ripped at Bottom Lounge in Chicago.
That was a great show.
That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
the Slick Rick performance on that show
Yeah.
was kind of one that afterwards everybody I know that was there was like, oh, that was next level. That was something else.
That was a good show for us.
Played
yeah.
shows with the Hives. I feel like you guys were in Europe for forever this summer. Is that accurate?
Actually, no, but we're good at making it look like we're
Well
in Europe
done.
forever on the internet.
Okay, there you go.
No, we were just over there for like 3 weeks. We did a bunch of festivals.
Oh, that's a long time in Europe, though.
Yeah, for sure. But it was great.
Okay, good.
Yeah, shows were good. It was
So with all that busy schedule this year, what's one thing you feel like you've gotten better at? Because, again, I've been with this band for quite a while now, and you guys, every time I see you, it's a level up. It's very impressive to see you guys continue to rise to new heights.
You know, as far as, like, one thing we've got, I mean, we're just a better live band now because we've spent so much time playing. I'm better at being a front person, right? I can read rooms a little better than I used to. Like you said at that Mets show, it's like you watched me read the room, right? And that's just, it is a skill. It's not something that comes inherently to me. And, you know, I think we're a better live band. And Nate's a better guitar player. Julian's a better drummer. We're better at occupying large space, right? Like what you just saw over at Riot Fest. Like, I now know how to walk out and burn down a festival. I don't think I knew how to do that at the Mets show. I think if you would have put, you know, things like call and responses to crowds or making everyone clap or everyone say, hey, well, like, 3 years ago I would have said, well, that's stupid.
Yeah, do you ever worry that that's corny, even though when you do it, it's not? But if I was a frontman, I would feel so self-conscious about that.
Again, stuff like that, for me, is a matter of reading the room, right? Like, when I was standing on stage today, I knew that would work. But you don't do that when you're playing with, like, a really hip pitchfork indie band, right? Like, you keep it a little more reserved and you make quippy jokes, right? Whereas, like, at a big festival and we're at Reading and Leeds and everyone's hammered, that's the moment where you could say, everyone put your hands in the air, and they're like, yes. And you say, are you ready? Say yeah. And they say yeah. And then we're all ready, right? And so I think, like, that skill is something that I've developed over the last, you know, we've just been on the road for 2 years straight, so that was something that I'm better at for sure.
Good. I'll let you go in a second because I know you're tired. I know it's been a long day,
Sure,
and you've got
sure.
an after show.
I'm great, but I appreciate it, yeah.
I wanted to ask you this question for 6 months now because we were supposed to do this in February.
Okay.
We couldn't do it.
Okay.
I hate the way I dress.
Okay.
It's flat bill hats every day. It's
Okay.
insert post-hardcore / hardcore adjacent band shirt,
Yeah.
and it's these black pants. Spiritual Cramp is the best looking band there is.
Thank you.
You guys look unbelievable. How do I dress like you? What brands do I need to look for? This is such
Yeah.
a serious question. I want to look like I'm in Spiritual Cramp.
Absolutely. I can help.
Thank you.
I can help with this. A pair of Levi. We're going to start off with a pair of Levi's 501s. And then you're going to get some 3-hole boots. Those can be Doc Martens or Solivairs.
Okay.
And they need to be shiny whenever you go out. So you need to carry a shine brush with you.
Okay.
And make sure that you shine your shoes when you're going to go out in public. A Fred Perry 3-finger collar. And tuck your shirt in and make sure you have a nice belt.
Okay. I don't own a belt.
Well, we're going to get you all
I gotta
of
get a
this.
belt.
Levi's is going to send you. We're going to get you a Fred Perry Levi's package. And then you have to have a Harrington jacket or like a bomber jacket. Or if it's cold, we're going to get an Arc'teryx. Arc'teryx has been supporting our band. We love Arc'teryx. We love Arc'teryx. And you just got to make sure that you're I don't seem very crispy, but it's just because I got off stage. and I usually melt on stage.
You came out in long sleeves.
Yeah.
And then you took the jacket off, and then you took the shirt off.
Yeah.
And I was standing next to my friend, a female, mind you, on the
Okay.
market, and
Yeah.
she goes, I was unfamiliar with his game. I did not know he was that good looking.
Well, that's very kind of your friend, and I appreciate the sentiment. But yeah, you know, you gotta. Here's what you do: you stay crispy, you get your kit right, and then you melt all day. And by the end of the day, you're melted. But everyone just remembers their first impression of you.
I love that.
Yeah.
One last question before you
Yeah.
go. I consider your band to be so cutting edge, so very
Thank you.
much on the cusp of things that are to come. I wish you guys the best. I'm curious,
Thank you.
in the music world at large right now, what do you like? What trends are catching your eye that you're into?
Wow, that's a great question. I love when people ask me this question because I get to talk about my favorite stuff that's going on. Tonight we are playing an after show at the Cobra Lounge, and there is a band called Homefront.
Shout out Homefront.
Yeah, and I know you're a fan of that band.
I
as
saw
well.
them with the Chisel.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Homefront is a great band. There's a band called Trauma Ray out of Fort Worth, Texas. It's an incredible shoegaze band, kind of heavy shoegaze, and they're definitely kind of buzzing up. Bad Nerves from Essex in England. I mean, there's Middleman from England is a good band. Nate plays in a band called Fentanyl. Nate from our band plays in a band called Fentanyl.
That new record they put out is unbelievably
Yeah,
good.
very good band. He also does a project called Slumped, which is a big kind of a more of like a kind of Weezer sounding, big, huge guitar rock band. They just released their debut LP, or it's not a debut LP, but they just released another record. It's really good. I really like the new Dive record. I mean, I could go on for hours talking about music that makes me excited. But yeah, those are some that come to mind.
Good.
Yeah.
I love it. When can we expect new Spiritual Cramp music?
Well, that's a great question, Case.
I know. And I look forward to you giving me a very honest, very real answer.
I'm going to give you
here.
an honest, non-political answer. I think we're probably going to release probably a handful of new songs in the spring, maybe an EP in the spring, and then of 2025, and then a new album in fall of 2025. Full new record. Getting ready to go record it.
That's what I like to hear. All right.
Yeah.
Look into that camera. Tell the people where they can find you. What do you want to plug? Let Q101 know.
You can find Spiritual Cramp in San Francisco, California, on the streets. This is Mike from Spiritual Cramp signing off for Q101. Appreciate the opportunity.